Naša Mirjava zaprela, presedela nevesela, u peče je proplakala, jedva mesec dočekala, oj meseče, kuda Mirja uteče, kroz te kite rakite, uka sela zelena, naša Mirjava je presedela, zela se, preveče je proljetala, jedva mesec dočekala, koja ti je najviše, da Mirja uteče, koja ti je najviše, uka sela zelena.
Good morning and welcome. The last time I was asked to open the TEB Day conference, I had an array of glib jokes ready, and the night before, or the morning before, there was a horrible terrorist attack in France, and it kind of spoiled the mood for that. Again, I had a few jokes lined up, and I think I'm not going to do them again because that was really very, very moving, yeah? That was tremendous. That was the Dawn Choir, and they were wonderful, right? So, I think with the British, we have a colonial attitude. And when you come here and you really do appreciate the depth and the beauty of the Serbian culture, it is quite moving. So, all jokes will be set to the end. Right, thank you so much for coming out. We've got a wonderful lineup for you, and it's my job to introduce the first speaker, who's going to be actually the introduction, not the first speaker, the lady to do the introduction, and that is the Regional Director from Macmillan for Central Europe, and that is Mrs. Agnieszka Schwartz-Vincent. Would you like to come up?
Hi, dobry den. Hello. As Richard said, I had a kind of jokes prepared, but what can I possibly say after this beautiful choir here? And my friend was making fun of me, saying like, now what you gonna do? Now what you gonna do after this beautiful choir? Yeah? I have been working for Macmillan for the last 22 years. I have been teaching, my friend's been teaching English, and you know, I was thinking about languages when I was listening to the choir, because we could actually understand some of the songs, and we were thinking, what was Zora buying in the bazaar? We were not sure. She was buying some animals, was I right? Yes? Goose, yeah, and so it's like we do also have in Central and Eastern Europe this kind of lingua franca, which is kind of no name lingua franca, because we can understand something. And then there was this song about the green forest, am I right? Yes, and something about green grass. So you know we can understand that, and that's how we feel that languages are so important. Yeah. So of course English is more international. But for us, for Polish people, being Belgrade, I'm here for the first time, really. And it's kind of very homely for us because we are from this generation who's been learning Russian, so the Cyrillic alphabet is for us, is kind of, we can read everything. A lot of words are quite similar. So we feel at home here, and Belgrade is kind of this decadent, beautiful city that brings a lot of history. I know that this is a weekend for you, and I'm really impressed that there's so many here of you coming for the weekend, and you look fantastic. I've heard so many nice things about teachers in Serbia and Belgrade, so I am really looking forward to be here. Thank you very much, English Book of Serbia. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Richard, for inviting us here. We will enjoy, I'm sure. I must tell you that it was the first time when we had a choir on the conference. It was the first time. 22 years I've been coming to different conferences, and it was moving, it was beautiful. And the mascot, you know, the girl, she was just so cute. I could see that some of you were singing along, so I guess there were some songs that you know. It was beautiful, so it's nice to start like that, you know, it's really... You know, we Poles, we are not, we kind of like everybody, more or less. We have never had an empire, so we have to be happy what we got. And, you know, it's very moving. I'm sure you will enjoy the conference. I'm looking forward. Thank you very much for being here, especially on the weekend. Lisa told us that there is some important family holiday, so it's even more, you know, wonderful that you're here with us today. Now, I brought with me my friends, Dave Spencer, who is our national treasure for Macmillan, really, is like the queen, you know. working with us for the last 20-something years. So I hope you enjoy this conference. It's lovely seeing you. And I will give you the first presenter, Nina Lauder. It's a fantastic name, by the way. You know, you can never forget it. You can never forget it, really. It's like my favorite cosmetics. Okay, enjoy the conference. Thank you very much.
So, my name is Nina. I am over the moon to be back. Oh, I can see some familiar faces. It's lovely to be back in Serbia. I haven't been back for a long time. It's lovely to see some familiar faces in the audience, a lot of familiar faces. So thank you again for coming out on this special day. I'm very excited to be sharing the stage today with some wonderful friends from Macmillan. So hopefully we'll get a lot of information from today's session. So welcome. And the choir was amazing. And I had another one of your colleagues sitting next to me saying the same thing. What are you going to do after the little girl? How are you going to beat that, eh? So, tough act to follow after that lovely choir. So let's get started. The first session today is on mixed abilities and bringing out the best in students. I like this quote a lot. It said, I often think teachers would have a perfect job if their students were all keen on learning. We could simply steer the learners along the highway of learning and enjoy watching them as they drive along into the pursuit of their dreams. Is this our situation in the classroom normally? No, not even when we're teaching adults. It's not always the situation. They're not always happily on their journey of learning. And again, within the class, we have a lot of different things happening. So like I said, it is wonderful to be back. You yourself might see some familiar faces here. Strawberry, Jagoda. We have other teachers here you might know, Vojana. So it's really, really nice to come home to Serbia and to walk through the streets. I'm making a lot of noise. Is that me? Is that me making all the noise? Now I'm not making the noise? Okay, sorry. Okay, so lovely to be back. So some of you know me. Just quickly show me. Thumbs up. I know Nina. I've worked with Nina on some courses. I know her quite well. This, I think I might know who that lady is, but maybe not. And this one, I've never seen that woman in my life. So show me. I know Nina. I think I might know Nina. I've never seen that woman in my life. Okay, so we've got a mix. We've got a mix. Okay, and I like this. She was like, absolutely not. Never seen you before. Okay, so what do we know? We know that my name is Nina Lauder. This is my webpage if anybody wants to check it out. For those of you who know me, where am I from? Very good, so from Canada. A little bit more tricky. Where do I live? Oh, bravo, very good, ding, 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 ding. So I live in Sevilla, in the south of Spain, or I used to live full-time in Sevilla. And now nobody, I don't think, will know this. Do you know this little village? Does anybody know that? This is a tiny little village in the south of Spain called El Rompido, which you translate into English as the broken. The broken, this little fisherman village of less than 1,000 people has stolen my heart. I don't want international travel. I don't want trips. I don't want Seville. I don't want Madrid. I just want the broken. So this place has stolen my heart. So now, from Canada to Seville to the broken. And then for my job, I teach at the university, I consult at schools, I teach classes, and I write educational material, mostly now for CLIL, for bilingual education. So that's a little bit about me. So, your first task, paper and pen. Take out a piece of paper or a pen, and or if you don't have paper and you don't want to write, just take some mental notes. So you are going to write what you think I am referring to. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a sentence, and you're going to write what you think I'm referring to. Ready? Okay. I say, I have a friend whose 12-year-old son is not like the rest of the kids in his class. I have a friend whose 12-year-old son is not like the rest of the kids in his class. What am I referring to? Imagine that child in your head and write 1 or 2 words or sentences. So if you bumped into me and I said, oh, he's different, he's not like the rest of the kids in the class, what does that bring to mind for you? He is, or he likes, or he has, So quickly, write 1 or 2 things. These answers are private. You don't have to share them, or you can just think of your answers. Okay, have you got your answers? Yes, more or less, very good. You can maybe share them later if you want. So, what we're going to do now, I'm going to give you some possible ideas. If it coincides with what you said, or more or less what you said, you can snap. Or if you see it and you say, yeah, that's true, it could have been that. That's true. You can snap if you want. Okay, so maybe some of you said, well, maybe the child has some sort of a special need or a special educational need. Did anybody think that? Oh, quite a few people. Okay, we went down that line, that maybe they had been diagnosed with something or they had a special needs situation. Fantastic. What about here? Maybe superdotado. Very, very clever child. Okay. Maybe the child was, I don't know, very short, tall, ugly, slow, overweight, funny looking. Maybe it was something physical. Did you think of something physical? Some people? Not too many, okay. Did you think maybe it was something about special diet? The child's vegan or diabetic or has dietary restrictions? Lactose intolerant, gluten-free. Okay, we didn't go that way. Maybe a child that was introverted, shy. Okay. Maybe a child that was adopted, not from the birth parents? No? What about here? Maybe that the child was especially kind or especially mean or especially bully or especially cruel. Did that cross anyone's? Okay. What about here? Uh-oh. A ghost, a vampire, a superhero? Did anybody think? Oh, okay, we've got one person there snapping. There's somebody back there snapping. Very good. Maybe you thought it was somebody from another country. Okay, maybe somebody from another country. Or maybe you thought maybe it was, Beckham's son or Mariah Carey's son. Did you think? No? Okay, we didn't have any famous. Okay, so you get the idea. There were lots of different possibilities here, and maybe some of them coincided with yours. So let's find out. Did any of you guess correctly? If you want, you can quickly tell the person next to you, oh, I said that it was a person with that. Okay. So quickly tell the person, what did you think, if you want to? I thought he was tall, or I thought he was... It's okay, the microphone is not into this. I don't need it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's find out. Why was this little boy different to the other children in the class? Oh, he's a redhead. Are redheads very common? No, they're not very common. Okay, so this was the difference. So what can we find out from this activity? Some of you probably thought of distinct physical characteristics. Some of you probably thought of emotional or mental characteristics, of preferences, of tastes. Some of you might have answered seriously, some not. Some of you might have answered truthfully, some not. But what does this show us? Did we all have the same opinion of the child? No. That we each have different interpretations of how or why someone is unique or different. And that quite often when we talk about mixed abilities and differences in the classes, we're looking at it quite negatively, when really all of us are unique, all of us are different, all of us have strengths, And all of us have weaknesses. And another quick question here, what does your answer say about you? And this is interesting. I asked a few friends and their children, 12, 13 years old, to answer these questions. And what did you think I found? For example, when I asked my friend Robert, who's an author, who lives in the countryside by himself with his dogs, and I said, why is the little boy different? What do you think he told me? He said, oh, the little boy is probably introverted. And I said, oh, like you. When I asked another friend, her daughter, who's 12 years old, and we said, well, why did you think the little boy was different? Oh, he probably didn't like his school, or he'd probably been transferred to a new school. Well, what a coincidence. She'd also changed schools recently, and she felt different. So quite often when you look at the answers you had on your paper, maybe it has also something to do with you and the times that you might have felt different in learning situations. So let's take a look here at mixed needs. So that was just a little warm-up. So now talking about mixed needs. Mixed needs in the real world. What do you think these pictures have to do with mixed needs? We have somebody hanging out their laundry, a bunch of plants, and a bunch of pets. What's that got to do with mixed learning, mixed abilities? Which one? Okay, there are different interests, fantastic. And what about, for example, when you wash your clothes? Everything the same way, no? All in the same bucket, all with the same soap, all with the same treatment? No, what happens? Some things are delicate, some things are colored, some things are white, some things need bleach, some things can't go near bleach. What about with our plants? The same. They all need the same treatment, they all need the same amount of light, they all need the same amount of water. They all have their own special needs. What about over here with the pets? Same, exactly. And so sometimes it's puzzling for me that we really get upset about these mixed abilities when we're talking about classroom situations, and I'm not saying they're easy, but in other facets of our lives, you don't see people sort of sitting down over coffee and saying, I'm so fed up of the laundry. Damn clothes that sometimes need special treatment and others I can just throw in the washing machine. No, we just get on with it. We don't cry over coffee with our friends about how the cactus doesn't need water and the other one needs shade. We don't try to make our fish bark. We don't try to make the cat, swim in a bowl of water. So we do this in other parts of our lives, but when it comes to the classroom and our job, and I know it's challenging, but we just have to more or less do the same things we do here. Some people will need special treatment, some people will need less special treatment in certain situations. So, we don't wash our clothes the same way, we don't water our plants the same way, we don't treat our pets the same way. So when we have kids in our class, or colleagues at our school, or family members at our dinner party, we also don't treat them in the same way. So this is just to sort of get us into the mind frame that we are actually mixed ability specialists just from being human beings. We already know how to deal with these things in other areas of our lives, so it's just applying those things to the classroom. So what about in your class? What are some different things that happen in your class? The students in my class have different knowledge, different levels of knowledge, different interests, different attitudes. Different attitudes to studying, different attitudes to studying English. Interests, behavior, motivations, fantastic. So when we look here, they have different needs, tastes, role models, cultures, interests, hobbies, maturity, language sensitivities. This one's very important. Quite often we say, oh, I teach a class of 12-year-olds. Well, what does that mean? You have some 12-year-olds going on 7, and you have other 12-year-olds going on 17. So it's not just the number, it's also their maturity, learning sensitivities, language sensitivity, language levels, families. I'm sure you've had this situation where you're like, oh my God, that child. And then suddenly you meet the family and you're like, now I understand. That they're maybe not in an environment that's conducive to learning at home, or maybe they're not being encouraged at home, like the other one who's going to 5 different language classes and violin class and karate on Saturdays. So they have different families, different motivations, problems, different groups, different pressures, different attention spans, the list could go on and on and on. And I think when we talk about mixed abilities, we tend to focus on the ones who are lost, when really mixed abilities is focusing on the whole range that you've got in that class, from top to bottom. So this is just a quick question about how we deal with things. Do we deal with things in the same way? So you imagine that you're a knitter. You go to open your little box to knit your winter scarf because winter is coming, and it's a mess. It's just a tangled mess. Very quickly, tell the person next to you, what do you do when you find, for example, maybe you don't knit, but many of you might have headphones or phone chargers where you find that big mess of cables. You're trying to get your headphones out. What do? What's your technique when you find a tangled mess? Just quickly tell the person next to you. It's hard for me to hear your answers, so I'm just going to say a couple of answers that I've had from students in the past. How many of you go straight for the scissors? Snap, snap. Yeah, sometimes. Some people are like, scissors? How many slowly take time to sort of spread it out on the table and little by little unravel it? Oh, you're marvelous. Very good. How many people pull until the knot is even worse? Yeah. Very good. Any other techniques? We had the cut, the pull, and the patience. Any other techniques? Which one? Sorry? Oh! Look at this. Environmentalists out the window. No, just throw it away. Buy a new one. Doesn't work, just throw it away. Okay, the headphones don't work, throw it away. Very good, okay, just get a new one. Get a new ball of yarn. Good solution, could be. Relax? Okay, relax the thread. So instead of doing what I do, which is pulling and making it worse, just spread it out. Relax those threads. Very good. So as you can see, even with a silly little domestic problem, do we solve problems the same way? Not necessarily. What can we find out about how we solve problems? So again, when we talk about teaching mixed abilities, I'm not really anyone to tell you what you have to do, because maybe you are unraveling your problem a different way to the way I am unraveling it. I can explain to you, I normally, I'm patient, I just spread it out, I figure it out. And somebody else might say, I figure it out by clock. You're over there, you're over there. Okay, there are different ways of dealing with things. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And you might want to try some little easy problem-solving things with your class to find out who gets frustrated when they can't solve the problem. Who takes time to sort out the problem slowly and calmly? Who asks for help? Who cuts out and just turns off? Find out about your students. The more you can find out, the easier to help them improve. So when we talk about helping students improve, and this isn't only in language, this is in anything they want to do in their lives, what can we do? Or how do we as humans work? So I'd like you to now think quickly of something you are good at. And I know as teachers, this is a difficult question for us, that we're often like, nothing, I don't do anything well. But think of something. It doesn't have to be academic. It doesn't have to be professional. It can be personal. You can say, I make an awesome spaghetti carbonara, or I make a really good morning tea, or I'm a great driver, or anything you're good at. Just think of something. Maybe you're good at a sport. Maybe you're a good singer. Maybe you're a good dancer. Maybe you're good at sewing. So just think of a couple of things that maybe you're good at. And if you want, you can tell the person next to you, I'm good at maths, or I'm good at playing tennis. I'm a good dancer. Okay, so the next one here is, So I can hear that you're good at some things. How did you get good? So now tell the person next to you, because what? Okay, so let's see, somebody was shouting out, practicing. Okay. Good. Very good. Okay, so let's stop there for a moment. So you do something well. How did you get good? So some people said practicing, learning, so maybe taking some classes, taking some lessons. Maybe you watched some YouTube videos. Maybe you read some books. So maybe you got external input to get better. Good. Any other things here? How did you get good? Bravo. Very good. So we've had practice, maybe learning from someone else, and fantastic answer over here, trial and error. Trial and error. You made the spaghetti carbonara, your husband wouldn't eat it, you fed it to the dog wouldn't eat it, you had to put it in the bin. But you tried it again one day. So it could be that. And then the final question here is, how do you know you're good at it? How do you know you're good? So you said, I'm a good dancer. How do you know? I'm a good teacher. How do you know? I'm a good cook. How do you know? Feedback. Exactly. We get feedback. We get nonverbal feedback. We get verbal feedback. I loved your spaghetti carbonara. Good. We have people repeating or wanting to play tennis with us again or wanting to have our spaghetti again. And so we know. We get some external feedback. Well, I think this is something that students also have to realize. They are not going to get good at English if they don't practice or learn or have some trial and error. And they definitely will not improve if nobody ever tells them they're improving. If they don't get feedback, how are they going to get better? And we're not just talking here about language. We're talking about their self-esteem. We're talking about their writing skills. We're talking about their social skills. Nobody can get better at something if they don't practice it and if nobody ever tells them, oh, you almost got it that time, but next time a little bit less cheese or a little bit more swing or a little bit less stomping, whatever it is. So please keep this in mind when you're working with mixed abilities. Whether they're high or low or in the middle, if they're going to get good, they need to practice and learn, and they need feedback. So just to keep that in mind. So let's look at some strategies, some specific strategies for mixed abilities. So what strategies can we use to make the classes more inclusive in terms of mixed levels? So here I'm not specifically talking about, for example, special needs or different cultures in class. We're just talking here about mixed language levels. Because of course, any one of these topics, mixed nationalities, mixed learning styles, mixed things like that, that could be a whole talk in itself. So today we're just going to focus on mixed levels of language. So what are some things we could do? We can use differentiated instruction, we can use dynamic grouping, and we can make sure we provide them with a safe environment. So let's take a look at each of these sections, little by little. So, differentiation, I think you've probably heard of this term. So just quickly tell the person next to you, what do you think differentiation is? If I were to say to you, oh yes, we do differentiation at our school. What do you think that refers to? Just tell the person next to you, or just think, what is differentiation in terms of teaching a language? Okay, so let's look at the definition. And as it says here, differentiation is a flexible approach to teaching in which the teacher plans and carries out varied approaches. So we're not using one approach, we're using varied approaches to content, process, and product in anticipation to response to students' differences in readiness, interests, and learning needs. Carol-Ann Tomlinson is an expert in differentiated instructions. So if we look here, to sum it up, differentiated instruction is an appropriate response to students' needs. So this might be the way you give feedback to one person, may not be the way you give feedback to another person. The type of assignment you give one person might not be the type of assignment you give another person. The way you give instructions to one person may not be the same way you give instructions to another person. This does not mean you are planning 35 different lessons. This just means that you have to be a little bit aware that maybe not everybody is working on the same page at the same time. So what can we differentiate in class? So here you have to unscramble the words. You can do it alone or chatting. Unscramble. So what have we got here? The first one? Content. Second one? Products. Very good. Third one? Process. Very good. And then? Learning environment. Good job. So content, in terms of content, we can adapt, we can adjust what the student needs to learn or how they will access the information. So if we come across a reading on a page that is super long, super complicated for the group of 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds or 19-year-olds that we've got, there are strategies we can use. We can say, oh, well, I'm only going to do the reading first 2 paragraphs today. I'm not going to do the whole text. Or I'm going to make photocopies of that text, and I'm going to divide them into little groups so they're doing it bit by bit because reading that whole page is going to be too much for them. So it's not saying that we're taking away content. We're just figuring out how to make it spoon size for the people we're working with. In terms of process, activities in which the students engage to make sense of the information and master it. How are we presenting the information? How can we change the way we present it and how they work with it according to their needs? Products. What finished products are we expecting from them? How much guidance do they need for that finished product? Because maybe you're saying, okay, get into groups and make a poster. Some groups can figure that out on their own. Other groups need more specific instructions or maybe need extra models and to compare model answers to be able to distinguish what's expected of them or not. Or maybe they need a rubric. So again, there are thousands of different ways we can do these things. And then, of course, the learning environment, which often in our cases as English teachers is a little bit out of our hands. Because I think in Serbia, you sometimes have the same situation that we have in Spain, that many times you don't have your own classroom. So you're just running from one classroom to another. Or if you have your own classroom, they might say, no posters, no pictures, don't touch, don't open the window. So that sometimes we're very restricted as to what we can do with our environment. But even if we can't change how the classroom looks, we can definitely impact how it feels. I mean, and again, just this morning, those of us who are doing these talks today, we were like, oh, what a nice feel this room has. So is it perhaps the most beautiful room we've ever been in our lives? Well, maybe not. But was there such a nice vibe from you as you were coming in, chatting to each other? We could hear that murmur of people chatting. We could see you smiling. Well, that makes the learning environment for us as speakers a lot better than when you're looking at a bunch of people who look like they're going to be going to an execution and just sitting there. So seeing you laugh, hearing you smile. I had at least 3 or 4 hugs from people I know before coming up on stage today. Well, that's my learning environment. That's what makes it easier to get up in front of you guys. So you've got to think of how you can make your classroom feel safe and feel conducive to learning. Another thing here, dynamic grouping. Where is the clicking coming from? Is that table? That's because I'm getting close to it? It's okay, it keeps you awake. That way if you're starting to fall asleep, you get cock and you're, oh my God. It's my speaking environment. Very good. So how can we form groups? Very quickly. Tell the person next to you, oh, when I have to get them into groups in class, I just take the 3 people sitting together, or I go down the list, or I give little pieces of paper. Okay, there was a good question here at the front. It was, how many students do you have in your class? And in Spain, we have more or less like you guys. Elementary, 26 to 28. Secondary, 30 to 32. And at university level with the masters, I have 40 to 50 in the class. And I still have to group them. I have worked at language schools and I have done private lessons. But I think most of us are in environments that we have minimum 12, probably maximum 35 in the class, more or less? More or less. Okay, so how do we group them? How do we group them? Yeah, any ideas? Which one? Okay, very good. So you might group them according to levels, like according to, exactly, so the strong with the strong, the weak with the weak, the middle with the middle. Or maybe you do it with levels where you have strong, middle, weak. Strong with weak. So I mean, you could either do it, so we're still using levels, but we're just dividing them. And again, according to the activity. Maybe there are some times where the group of students who are really advanced know the grammar point. So you say, look, you guys, I need you to write a comic. You're going to be working on that on your own, and that you dedicate some time to the students who are struggling with the grammar point, in which case you have divided by level, saying strong and weak. And then sometimes we sort of say, oh, that's terrible. You know, the children are going to know that they're not good at English. They know they're not good at English. I was in dummy French. When I was in Canada, I went to the dummy French class. I knew I didn't speak French. Nobody had to tell me I didn't speak French because there was somebody sitting right next to me who was speaking fluently in French. And I was still saying, bonjours, you know, so I knew she knew more French than I did. It's not a problem. We don't have to make a big deal about it. So sometimes you can just sort of say, look, they already know the grammar point. They're going to be doing something else. Let's just deal with this so we get it straight so we can work together. So you might do it by levels. Any other ways? According to their interests, exactly. So sometimes you can put sort of little signs on the walls or posters up that you say, you know, what did you watch on telly last night, or what's your favorite activity at the weekends, and they can organize themselves by things they like. So other things we might do, you know, by the same skill level, and in this case, it's not just language level. You might have a student who's very, 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 very good at English because their mommy and daddy are from Germany and Canada and they speak English, but they're hopeless at writing. They understand and speak perfectly, but their grammar is terrible. And you might have another child who actually has a lot of insecurity speaking in English in class, but they have really perfect writing and grammar. So here, you know, you can divide them by skill or by language level, mixing those skill or language levels, having the students pick their own. You know, that you just sort of say, I need you guys to form groups of 3, obviously supervising that nobody's like, well, I'm not with you, I don't want to play with you, sort of things like that. You might just say, okay, I need pairs. Can I have, please? Can I have pairs? You know, pair, 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 pair. Maybe you do it. Maybe you do it by proximity. Pairs and groups can be formed by lucky draw. And for any of you who've worked on me with courses that we've done over a few days, I always use this system. You know, if I have a group of less than 50, I have them write their names on a slip of paper. I put the slips of paper into my hat or my bag, and then I say, okay, so who can think of 3 ways to form groups? Tell your partner. Out of the hat. Gregory, what did you think? You know, Jagoda, what did you think? So I take their names out randomly, and then if I have to form a group, I say, okay, groups of 5. The groups of 5 are Gregos, Jagoda, Maha. You know, I just take the names out of the hat, and then it's just random selection. Or with random, you can also give Post-its, or give numbers, or give colors, and then say, okay, everybody red over here, everybody blue over here. So again, with mixed random grouping. Some of the things you might have is just giving numbers 1 to 12. In a class of 24 or 25, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Ones together. 2s together, 3s together. Or here, ask the students to write an English word on a Post-it. Look through the unit. Write one word you like on the Post-it note. Stand up, make an alphabetical line. So you get them in their line, and then from their alphabetical line, you can say 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5. So there are all sorts of different ways of doing this. How does dynamic grouping help our learners? Why am I always so, they have to work together, they have to work with other people, they have to move, they have to work together. What does it help? They can learn from each other. I think it helps them to stop bullying each other. The more you get to know another person, the more you work with them, the better it is for you. And I think it also helps a lot with classroom management. Self-esteem, exactly. And so when they're always every single day in the same row, every single day in the same place, they just become complacent with that place in life. So I think it is important that, if you don't want them standing up and running around and things like that, I sometimes just do things like, when they're in a row like this, I might just say, okay, this row and this row, change places. So it's silly, it's stupid, but it just means that instead of always working with that partner, you're now working with a new partner, and it's not a huge ruckus in the classroom. Building a safe environment, which is the last thing we're going to look at here, is in order to build a safe environment, teachers should what? I think the first one here, teachers should care. That we should care. Because if you don't care about having a safe environment, you won't have a safe environment. So be honest with them. Exactly. Be honest with them. Tell them the truth about what's happening, or tell them the truth about how you feel, or whatever. Very good. Anything else that you can think of? I'm going to show you some things here because we're almost out of time. Get to know their backgrounds. So like we said before, is this academic problem or is this behavioral problem coming from my class? Just the other day, I had a teacher say to me, I don't know what to do because they're not good in my class. And I said, are they good in other people's classes? And she said, I never asked. And I said, well, it's kind of important to know because that makes a big difference between do they just hate English and hate me, or do they hate life in general at school? Which is what happens to some kids. I mean, I've had teenagers tell me that it's worse than prison. I'm like, I hope you haven't been to prison to compare. But, they're like, this is prison. This is horrible. So, find out why. Where's that coming from? Why is this huge towards education? Be fair. Be fair to the students. Be fair. We can't just, punish or give prizes. I mean, it happens. We're human. We have favorites. We have pets. We have people that we like better than others. But try as best you can to be fair in your grading, in your grouping, in your activities. Try to be fair. And then be prepared to make on-the-spot decisions. So if something is not going the way you like, or if something is going the way you like, be flexible enough to go with it. Give praise where praise is due. So this is, again, not just like, yay, everybody's wonderful all the time. No, like you said, be honest. If somebody says incorrect answer, we're not going to say, wonderful. No, okay, try again. Nice try, not quite. We don't have to be cheerleaders telling them they do everything perfectly. Use variety of techniques. This idea of pigeonholing, do you know what that is? Where you just decide what a student is. Bad student. Good student. Noisy student. Or for example, when you start the school year, I'm sure this has happened to you, no? Where you go into the staff room and they say, what group do you have this year? And you're like, 2C. 2C. I had 1C last year. They're the worst. They're the worst. Well, how do you walk into the class? Expecting the worst. So this goes to this whole Pygmalion effect, that if you're expecting them to be bad students, they will. And if you're expecting them to learn, some of them will. Very good. So just remember here, you, yourself, and your students are like some people, and at the same time, like no other person. So everyone in here, we're all individuals, and when you have 30 kids in your class, they are all individuals. And this is from a fantastic talk, a TEDx talk by Eamon Ryan called Introverts, Extroverts, and Ambiverts. I was very excited to learn that maybe I'm a hidden ambivert. So, a couple of practical ideas. Just a couple of things from the textbooks. I'm not going to go into this in detail, but if you're looking at primary material and Rainbow Bridge, well, now in the textbook, you have a lot of information about differentiation. You can give them songs for homework. You have some real-world content for kids who don't like the whole academic grammar business. There's material for science classes, stories and values, digital resources. So all of these things can be used to help you with diversity in the classroom. In secondary, the same thing. And I think this is in any book. You know, I'm sure that Macmillan books have the same type of idea, that you've got catering to mixed abilities, Cambridge, Pearson. I don't think there's a publisher, an international publisher in the world now that doesn't have some reference to how to deal with mixed abilities in their textbooks or in their teaching materials. So find it and use it. And then here I brought you in some ideas. I'm going to be sending English book a PDF of the seminar, just so you know. So you should be receiving that. They can get it by email, yeah? So we'll be sending you a PDF summary, just so you know, if you don't have time to take photos or write down all of the ideas, we will send you next week at some point the summary, just so you know. This is from a fantastic article called Teaching and Learning in the Face of Conflict, which is very interesting. And the author talks about nonverbal communication ideas in class. So some of the things she brought up for teaching in different learning situations, you can ask your students to share and discuss a color, a symbol, and an image that represents how they're feeling, for example. So now we're not looking at academics. You can get your students to mime what they're feeling. So again, this is providing this safe environment. How do you feel today? How are you doing? I thought this was very nice. Create a box of fears. So for those of you who've done courses with me for 3 or 4 days, we have a suggestion box in the class, but I've never done a box of fears, and I thought that was lovely. It's anonymous. You have the papers and the pen next to the box, but somebody can write, I'm afraid of speaking in public. I'm afraid of working with so-and-so. I'm afraid I'm going to fail the exams. And they can anonymously put it in the box. Maybe we're not in touch with what they're afraid of. You can use pictures and storybooks to help them understand concepts, and you could maybe make a gratitude jar. So instead of a fears jar, a gratitude jar. What am I thankful for? What went well this week? So I thought those were very nice non-language focused ideas. And this is just one quick activity we're going to do. If you want to, I'm sure you know this activity, but just try it with your partner if you want. Oh, how am I doing for time? What's the time, please? Quarter. Okay, I'll just 3 minutes more and we're done. So try to find a partner if you want to. If not, you can just relax. One person is yellow, one person is blue. Okay, so just decide, okay, I'm yellow, I'm blue. Yellow and blue. So just decide with your partner if you want to do it. Who's yellow, who's blue. It's totally random. Sometimes I'm moving, sometimes I'm not moving, sometimes I'm over here, sometimes I'm over there. It's totally random. Okay, so find a partner. Okay, so yellows. Anybody who's participating and wants to do it, yellows, put your hand up. Yellow text box. Yellow, hands up. People who are yellow. Blue, hands up. Okay, some of you are not doing it, it's okay. So what you're gonna do, the yellows and the blues who are doing it. Yellow, read your line, blue answer. Yellow, read your line, blue answer. Read it twice and try to remember your text. Okay, so go ahead. Quickly, just read. We need to go shopping. I don't think so. We're gonna. Okay, so just read the text. Twice. Very good. Okay, you get the idea. So the idea with disappearing dialogues, you have a short dialogue, take away a little more. Very nice for your mixed levels. Very nice. The advanced students are working on their memory skills. The lower levels are working on memory and speaking and vocabulary. Yes? Okay. Oh, very nice. So one of the ladies here has tried this with the lower levels with songs. And how did it go? Great. Exactly. So you're just taking away little by little. Fantastic. So the last activity today is a game called Ubuntu. Ubuntu, which is a South African word, which is humanity, or I am because we are. So in this case, I'm going to show you a card. Ubuntu cards are cards that have There's another one as well, another game very similar to this called Double. You know this game with the little circular cards, Double? So you've heard of it, and it exists in Serbia, Double. So either Ubuntu or Double. It's the same thing, but I just make my own. You don't have to go out and spend money on games. Just make your own. Just steal the idea from somebody else. So here, what you do is you're going to have 3 cards. So you can either work in groups of 3 or in a pair or by yourself. What your job is. You have to find an image similar. So for example, you might say between B and C, oh look, a brush. Oh, I have a brush too. Or, oh look, I don't know. Oh, a rocket. Oh, okay, we both have rockets. So some of the cards, A and B have some similar images, B and C have some similar images, A and C have some similar images. So you would normally work in a group of 3. When or if you find something similar, so if I am A and Gordana is C, and we both say, oh, cat, me, cat. Okay, I have cat. We need to then find something similar between us. So I might say to her, I don't know, do you have a brother? No. Okay, me neither. Okay, okay, we don't have brothers. Or, do you like ice cream? Yes. Oh, me too. I like ice cream. So then we both like ice cream, or we both can speak English, or we both can. Okay, so if you want, I'm only going to do this 30 seconds because we're out of time. If you want, you pick a card, your partner picks a different card, try to find something similar on the card, and then something similar between you as human beings. Go, 30 seconds. Okay. So I think you get the idea. You can make these cards, or the students can make these cards. You just have to make sure there are similar things on the cards. Okay? Have you played this before? Do you know the game Ubuntu? No? Okay. Very good. Okay. Quick question. Did you find a picture on all 3 cards? Ding, 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 ding. The orange. 1, 2, 3. So, very good. Okay. Just to close off, one of the main factors that influences students' learning is this. According to research, a significant predictor of success is grit, or this passion and perseverance for a long-term goal. As it says here, this characteristic is apparent in all levels of education and in society, and according to research, is more important than talent, IQ, or IQ for success. As Angela Duckworth states, people who are capable of being perseverant view life as a marathon, not a sprint. In her study, she discovered that students with grit were more likely to graduate, even if their socioeconomic backgrounds or standardized test scores were lower. So I think this is something we can work on with our students. And I think it's what you mentioned right at the beginning with this trial and error. That if we can teach them to be persistent, that it doesn't matter what happens in this year's English because they have a long time to continue learning English. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You're doing well, I believe in you, you can make it. If I can do it, you can do it attitude. I think we will have more successful learners. So my friends, some recommended reading I will send to you. So you've got here this book that I just mentioned, Grit. This book is fascinating. If any of you work with autistic children, have you read it? You have it. Fantastic, exactly. So this was actually written by a 13-year-old Japanese boy who is autistic. And it's wonderful insight into the world of autistic children and autistic adults. This is another interesting book. He's kind of gone off the rails, but the book is very interesting about trust and education. See Me After Class, Experiences by Teachers. Outliers, again, Malcolm Gladwell has gone a little bit off the rails, but this book is great if you want to find out about success and how people become successful. Susan Cain, Introvert Queen. She is the introvert queen. She is a complete spokeswoman for introverts. So very interesting for those of us who are more towards extrovert to find out what life is like on the other side. And then this is a fantastic book, very old book by an Irish author called Christopher Nolan, who was highly intelligent but had cerebral palsy. And so he was unable to speak, he was unable to eat by himself, he was in a wheelchair from the age of birth. And so it was a very, very interesting story to read about what it's also like to be understanding the world around you, but nobody understands you yourself. So if you like reading, some good things there. And this is from this boy with autism. I've learned that every human being with or without disabilities needs to strive to do their best. And by striving for happiness, you will arrive at happiness. For us, you see, having autism is normal. So we can't know what it's like for your normal is even like. But as long as we can learn to love ourselves, I'm not sure how much it matters if you're normal or autistic. So I think it's a beautiful way to end there, just thinking that, we all have our things. We all have good parts. We all have bad parts. The most important part is to get on with others and to like yourself as well. So teaching kids to count is fine, but teaching them what counts is best. So this is our final. Have I got 1 minute left? No, I'm gone. No, I'm out of the... Okay, let's do this one together. We're going to read this poem together, and then you get your breakfast. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Here's to the kids who are different. The kids who don't always get A's. The kids who have ears twice the size of their peers and noses that go on for days. Here's to the kids who are different. The kids they call crazy or dumb. The kids who don't fit with the guts and the grit, who dance to a different drum. Here's to the kids who are different, the kids with mischievous streaks. For when they have grown, as history's shown, it's their difference that makes them unique. Good job, Belgrade! Well done. Thank you for joining us. Sorry I went a little over.